My parents used to punish me by taking away my books. Now, my dad asks me why I play so many video games and don't read anymore. In what depressing ways have you changed? I used to be very empathetic and could really put myself in other people's shoes. At some point that side of me became too strong and I began putting other people's problems before my own. Now it's completely opposite. It seems I only care about myself. I used to love going places, being social, having friends and the like. But now I don't really leave my apartment, mostly because when I do crowds of people make me anxious as heck. I still have friends but I barely communicate with them anymore. Want to play a game of chess? Mom, dad, sis, friend? No honey, not now. Got this every time I asked anyone. And I love chess. 10 years later, my mom starts asking, why don't you play some board games instead of all those video games? God, I hear this. Because I can't play board games by myself. You could play chess on the computer. That's what I had to do in the end. Today I realized when I sit at a computer, my left hand no longer automatically falls on the WASD keys, but instead on the home row like some sort of professional not gamer. Also, I was hanging out with some children who woke up as soon as the sun was up because they were filled with joie de vivre and excited to be alive. I value my sleep more than living my life. I'd rather spend half the day sleeping and wake up feeling refreshed than wake up after only 8 hours of sleep and spending the whole day thinking about how tired I am. It ruins my productivity, but I really like sleeping. This one is a little more depressing than what I've been reading, so I'm sorry in advance. My mother has always squashed my confidence. When I was really young, about 4ish, I would always talk and be engaged in what everyone was doing and just carefree. But the older I got, the more my mom would make me feel bad about myself. She would point out that I was fat, I had bad acne on my face, called me a W, even going as far as locking me in our bathroom and forcing me to look in the mirror so she could point out all the things that are wrong with me. I can't look in a mirror now without bursting into tears and I've pulled myself out of social situations. I don't talk as much anymore because every time I try she ignores me or doesn't listen or care what I'm saying. I'm sorry for this negative post, but it feels good to get this off of my chest finally. That is incredible. A while back someone posted that when they got in trouble, their parents punished them and in order to reduce the punishment terms they had the option to do an artful project. As a result, their lives have turned out well and their careers now revolve in relation to what they did to lighten punishment. If I recall, one went to be a musician and another a performer. I know someone here remembers the post and can maybe confirm. We're here to read about people's sad lives. We don't need your amazing parenting advice. Seriously though, that is an amazing idea. I'll have to remember this for the future. When I was younger I would always go out and hang out with people even after football practices. Now I gave up on some old best friends just because I didn't feel like going out and seeing them. I have lots of friends but I feel too socially lazy to talk to those people on the phone every day and hang out more than a couple times a month or less. They tear you down to bring you in line and call it discipline. Then after you're broken they wonder where your spirit has gone. I get Arp's position. When I was a kid, if my parents took something away as a punishment, my response wasn't to pine for it and reflect on my behavior. It was to stop caring about whatever it was that I didn't have anymore. That way, I don't have to feel bad, even while being punished. Since I was young, I always study once I got home, ate dinner, and went back to studying. Years later and in university, I don't give a crap anymore and my grades are slipping. I find it sad that when I was younger, I was able to study all day about nothing, but now when grades really matter I just don't care and don't study. I'm the same way, except I never had motivation or reason to study. High school was such a breeze. I used to love searching for new music, being up on the latest tech and playing video games all the time. Now I've replaced those with a career, bird watching and wearing sensible shoes. Gotta admit, am I happy? My wife and I will spend hours on our back porch staring at and coming up with names for the birds that frequent our feeder area. We are 29 and 28, respectively, and are completely unapologetic. It's fun. Damn it. They have such stupid little feet. I used to be fairly fit because I ran a lot. Ever since I got married, and even more so now that I have a baby, I've become flabby and out of shape. I want to have a six-pack again, but I can't find the time or motivation. You won't find the motivation. I run because I know I'll never find any real reason to do it in the future, so I don't think about it and hopefully I'll never stop. Biking is a whole other story. The more I work on my bike, the more I ride. My life is the opposite. My parents used to take away my video games and Game Boy, and now I have people ask me why I read so much. I don't read anymore either. I used to read all the time when I was younger. Same goes for writing. Now I'm just tired and unmotivated most of the time. The part that really gets me down is that I dedicated a lot of my life to my writing and now I can't get myself to write more than a paragraph on one thing. Part of me feels like I could be doing better things, or at least more entertaining ones, with my time instead of reading. And it's not like I'm not entertained when I read. It's kinda bizarre. I had the same thing happen to me when I was a kid. To make matters worse, I was actually suspended from school for 2 days because I used to read books on the playground. Apparently recess is for socializing, not reading. Okay, so you weren't socializing, so they sent you home to be alone. WTF teachers. My fiancé used to complain about all the time I spent at the gym and thought I was working out too much. Now I go so infrequently that I don't even know where my membership passes half the time. Need to find a happy medium, I guess. I got books taken away as a kid too. I would wait until my parents were asleep, or so I thought, and would read in the bathroom because I thought they wouldn't notice light coming from there. It did squash my fervor for reading for a while, but I got it back eventually. Hopefully you will too. I made all of my friends by being the person I was. Overly outgoing. A bit of a jock really. I'm now so scared of losing these friends that I'm not the person I was. I don't feel like I am as fun to be around anymore. My old mentality was, just do it. They might like it. Whereas now it's more, don't do it. Why take the risk of them not liking it you? In truth, this is probably because I'm still in this weird kind of purgatory. Ray, my homo crush on my best friend of 15 years. Thing would get better after you came out. You might lose some friends, but at least you wouldn't have to wonder about it anymore. I no longer see programming as a hobby, now it is my work. I hope I don't ever get like this. I program during my work hours and make my own stuff in my lunch breaks. My mom wonders what happened to her happy, smiling little boy. He grew up and realized how crappy the actual world is, so he has to make jokes about everything in order to keep from snapping and shooting up a school. I used to write music all the time. My dream would be to live off making music. Scoring games, TV and film and such would be amazing. Or just simply making my own music then releasing it independently. I've forgotten how to write music due to a long-lasting horrible depression. I haven't written anything in about 2 years, and I rarely practice anymore. This sucks. I used to love math and be good at it, but my math teacher, whom I was close with, died, so I was turned off to school and essentially took my senior year off. And now I'm bad at math, and my reading comprehension is through the floor. At 16, never understood why people kill themselves. I always thought any life is better than death, even a messed up one full of abuse. Now I know why. It's because you get tired of suffering. Now I wonder how long can I last before I can't take anymore. I used to care about my GPA. I was always that kid who aced everything and did all his homework. I even missed opportunities to hang out with friends and family because of school projects. That was until I missed an allegedly awesome camping trip with my bro, uncle, cousin and some friends. Around that time I also had a dream, very much like A Christmas Carol, where I died and saw the past, present and future. I didn't like what I saw. Now I can't give half a crap about my GPA. I'm still top 3, but it's not worth the extra effort. I focus on enjoying myself and learning, something which I didn't do too much of previously. I learn methods and derivations, never memorize and barely study. It's bit me in the butt, but it's okay. I like it this way. I'm still the first to understand the concepts I'm taught, and I'm the only idiot who chooses the harder profs and electives intentionally because I want to learn. Could be depressing from a certain POV, but I feel like I'll live more this way. I was a very compassionate person and could talk to people I didn't even know and sparks would fly, no matter their gender. This was before my studies at university. Now I'm caught in an endless cycle of stress. I can't muster up much passion about anything, not even the courses I'm taking. I wonder if perhaps society has become maladjusted to itself, incompatible with the nature of empathy and non-machine lifestyles. It could also just be that I'm doing a technology-oriented program. I don't know, maybe I should switch majors. I've lost my love of books. No book engages me anymore, and hasn't for years. I remember the excitement of a new book, the smell of the freshly opened pages, forgetting where I was as I lost myself in an imagined world. I used to marvel at how simple text could take me places, how I could go anywhere through time and space without ever leaving my bed. A book hasn't done that for me in years. I don't know why. I was a kid with dreams, a fat, blubbery kind of guy who just wouldn't stop about this next thing he was going to do. I didn't know much about the world, but by God, I wanted to. Then came the 8th grade. My close circle of friends all drifted apart. One of them even turned on me. We stopped talking for a while. I was depressed. I didn't know why. For 2 whole years, I basically had no friends, which sucks when you're 14. Anyway, in this time, I decided to do something productive. So I hatched an idea for a book. English was something I was good at, that and computers. So I spent hours and hours developing this book idea. While my social life basically did not exist, it was a fantasy. I lost myself in it. The whole thing was twisted. While I was on a creative high, excited to build a book which would one day bring me, possibly, fame and fortune, I didn't talk to anyone. I was teased. I was made fun of. I didn't care. I was me. Then finally, one day, my life became clear to me. I had no friends. If you've ever been that guy who just sits quietly on the sidelines, looking at other people live their lives, and not doing anything yourself, you were me. I had to get out. So I did the one thing I could. I deleted my book from my life. Turned 15, I passed into a different school. Over here there is a schooling system of 13 years of school from kindergarten in one school, and 2 years at junior college, or high school. I cut all my ties with people from my past life, except for those I had to meet on a regular basis. I joined a coaching class for my big finals at the end of my high school graduation. This coaching class was basically where I made my new home. I made new people, made new best friends, grew thinner than I've ever been, and basically threw myself into working for this bug paper I have to give at the end of high school, when I'm 17. A little reference. Over the summer, I had rekindled my desire to write and be an author, and had even finished plotting out my book completely. This meant I had to give up writing. And with a wretched heart, I did. I basically now have given up, convincing myself that my book's plot is no good and it will never sell. I need to study, to finish that exam and get into a good college. That's 6 months away, and it's 6 months since I've even thought about writing. It makes me sad every day, and I convince myself that I will do it later. But I know I won't. I won't get the time. Whatever excuse it is, I'll take it. Because I know that if I do, I will never stop being reminded of that dark place I went to in my early teens. And that is just too painful. But at the same time, this is so much a part of me that I feel bad for letting it go. Keep writing. It's worth it. I used to skive a lot of time off school with a friend, and we'd go to the town library to read. One evening, being ironic, the library was always warm, the seats were incredibly comfortable, and there was always some interesting book to read. My favorite were books on paranormal happenings and aliens. Was a bit like being back in the womb, minus the aliens part. I used to be happy, now I spend most of my time flittering between depression and being miserable, and I view everything through a large veil of pessimism. I used to be borderline psychotic when it came to academics. Now I'm heading into my junior year of college and jump for joy to see. I think I'm getting a wee bit burned out, but meh. Used to have a ton of friends, but after they all had kids, got married straight out of high school, I lost touch with them and was so busy with school I never made new ones. Now I cringe at the idea of conversation when I used to love it. I used to be the super outgoing kid when I was younger. Pre-18, I would go into the city every weekend, buy alcohol with fake it, and get drunk with my friends in public. We'd do weird crap and someone would always end up bleeding or have fallen into a river or something. Then everyone turned 18 and now all they seem to do is sit in boring pubs staring at a TV. Or worse, smell talking. They don't screw around and climb trees or try to feed vodka to ducks anymore. It's so boring, and I hate it. The same goes for clubs. I'd rather sit around someone's house and play video games all night while getting pee like we did when we couldn't legally go out to drink. Clubs have terrible music and are full of terrible people, and are about twice as expensive. As a result, I never do anything socially anymore. I sleep like 16 hours a day. I do something about that sleeping. Sounds like you could be heading in the direction of depression. I'm not though. I used to practice playing guitar around or over 4 hours a day. I loved jazz and fusion and a few jam bands, but over the last couple of years I've become so cynical and everything sounds cheesy. Every chord sounds stupid. Now I hardly ever practice like I used to, and I'm trying desperately to get back to the level I was at before my head started destroying the only thing I've ever loved. I'm sitting here with my guitar having not slept and I've practiced nearly all night. I'm determined to redeem myself. I went into college thinking people are generally good with pockets of bad. Yeah, not so much. More like generally crappy with speckles of decent. Bro, you're not done with reading. Find the right books, something that grips you. Do you commute or travel at all? Traveling rehooked me to reading despite the fact I game a lot. Bought a Kindle and have read at least 20 books on it so far. Only had it a year. Entire Game of Thrones series has been done. 2 trilogies from Robin Hobb, up to book 6 of the Malazan series. Just pick up your books. I used to draw all the time when I was younger, around 7 till about 13. Then drugs took over my life and I stopped. I'd do almost anything to get my next fix. Now the only thing I do is smoke so trees to sleep. I still don't really draw though. I'm having the same problem with drawing. I used to love to draw, but now I can't ever find the desire to do it. I try to force myself to do it, but it's not the same as wanting to. I used to be a really outgoing kid who could talk to anyone, and my parents would always humiliate me by punishing me for speaking to adults. Now I'm extremely social awkward. A few years ago I was in high school and I loved play. I played lots of different sports. I started playing soccer out of school with friends and loved it. I was fit. I would play these sports 3 times a week in school, and on the weekend it would be soccer. Even when no one wanted to play I would go out running. Fast forward to the present day, I hardly exercise. I'm lucky if I go out running 3 times a month. No more soccer. I'm not as fit. My knees are freaking up half the time I attempt a sport, and my endurance has diminished greatly. I used to be so fit and healthy. I could play a full 90 minutes and still have the energy to run. Now I can hardly run a few miles. Interesting. When I punish my kids, I take away all electronics, except the Kindle. They can read all they want, but no TV, internet or video games. Just last night I had to bring down my fatherly wrath and haul all the kids' toys to the basement. After about an hour of being nice and trying to get them to pick up, being blatantly ignored, etc. The only things are left out: books and art supplies. My wife and I both firmly believe that toys are definitely a privilege, but I believe that the sciences, arts, and reading are rights, and should never be used as forms of punishment. I'm curious what you did that was so bad that warranted them taking your books. Your parenting style FTW. When I was younger I used to get awards in school for being the most avid reader. I stopped reading for recreation in high school. I was forced to read books in English class and it made me feel sick of reading. I had never had this problem before because my middle school was quite liberal and allowed students to pick their own reading lists. The only requirement was to answer questions about the book, state its significance, write an essay, etc. I once wrote an essay about a Halo book. I felt pretty boss. My high school isn't so liberal, though. If I want to read my own books, it has to cut into my gaming time, which is becoming much more enjoyable because all my friends are on the microphone. Reading is fun, but socializing with my buddies is much more enticing since we never see each other at school. When I was 8, right after the first Harry Potter movie premiered, my dad introduced me to the books. He would read me a few chapters at bedtime and I would read by myself during the day. A year later I had read the first 4 books several times. This was before the 5th was published. So I was 9 years old and was constantly reading Harry Potter, which made me feel smart, because I thought they were quite difficult for a kid my age. Maybe that's not the case, but compared to my classmates I was a genius. Some of them still read easy reading books, the kind that have 30 pages with 10 lines each, and the rest were reading the books where half the pages were illustrations. I thought I was smart and wanted to be praised, but the only thing I was told was that I had to find new books to read. Never did I get any praise for reading books that were more than 500 pages, at least the 4th. Meanwhile the teacher would gush about any kid that read 2 books a month, pointing out to the entire class how smart they were. As we got older I was required to read as many books as the others. Never mind that I would have to read Order of the Phoenix plus another book, while my classmates could read 300 pages overall. I had a hard time finding books that I liked, and once I did I tore through them in a matter of days. I used to read all the time, but now I just read once in a while. I still enjoy it, but to this day I have never been praised for how much or how well I could read. Maybe that seems a little petty, but a little praise was all I wanted and I would never get it. The only comment I have ever heard about my reading is people saying, "Why do you read?" or even you, "Why do you read? It's so boring." When I was kid up until high school, my parents, Korean, ran a really strict household in which I was pretty much told to shut up, listen, and do as they said. We lived in a remote, gated housing community where none of my classmates lived, so the only thing I was left with was schoolwork and television at home. When I went to college and started living on my own afterward, during the few times I talked to my parents, they wondered why I didn't talk to them often. Now I don't talk to them at all. Ugh. I used to be constantly thinking, like I was always mentally active, talking in my head, making observations, thinking, etc. Now I have idle time where I'm not doing or thinking about anything. It's just like, I've noticed myself get dumber, and I don't have a clue what's changed. I used to be great at multitasking, now I am not. I used to have an awesome imagination, and now it's gone. I want these things back, but don't know what to change in my life to get my old mindset back. Upon entering high school in my hometown, I realized that I was not cool at all. I watched DBZ, played RuneScape, and used class time to draw comics. I was bullied a lot, especially for the drawing. I drew anime style people, and I thought I was getting pretty good at it, too. One day, I remember going to my locker after PE, and finding that someone had gone through my bag, taken out the binder that had all my drawings in it, ripped every drawing to shreds, and left the pieces in my backpack. They left a note that said something like, "Frick you, you can't draw." The year after that happened, I transferred to a different school in a different town, where I tried to sort of reinvent myself. I stopped watching anime in general and taught myself how to play guitar. I still play, and I've never been very good, but I'm just good enough to trick people into thinking I'm good. Needless to say, I don't draw very much anymore. I got made fun of for being extremely smart in elementary school, so I stopped talking to anybody for most of junior high and high school, let my grades fall, and stopped caring about my life in general. I used to be very intelligent, confident, an all-rounder, and a self-actualized young girl. After joining an all-girls school, I became aware of jealousy and competition from other girls and would get bullied for being better and passionate about most things. Add that to the fact that I would get told off a lot for coming home late due to staying at the library for too long or after school clubs. I began to believe my passion for things inconvenienced others and thereby conditioned myself to not be like that anymore so no one would be jealous of me and so that I can have more friends. Now I wish I had kept those traits now that I'm at university. Oh boy, is it difficult to go back. My parents did something similar. I was young, 10ish, and loved comic books, LOTR, Star Wars, etc. I read every Star Wars book I could, got multiple comic books and read them monthly and knew the LOTR awkwardly well. Well, my parents tried to move me from nerdy books to grown-up books. so they made me read novels before I could read my nerdy books. I hated being forced to read Jane Austen or 1984, so I stopped. I played soccer and video games and basically stopped reading for fun. Years later, I still don't read in my free time since it feels like a punishment, and reading nerdy books makes me embarrassed and feel dorky. Thanks mom and dad. I'm late, but oh well. I used to be a really happy person, had awesome experiences and felt like I was living life. Then my mom died. Since then, I've become the biggest hypocrite I've ever known. I'm an butthole to everyone. Friends, family, spouse, co-workers, strangers, etc. I've developed anger issues, and that coupled with my depression is probably going to be the end of me here pretty soon. I used to want to continue with my education and make my family proud, but now I don't give a crap about anything and would be perfectly content being alone. I'm apathetic towards all of my friends' needs and situations and generally don't care about them. I miss my mom. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.